Hey folks, welcome back to another Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark.
And I'm Anne.
Today we're taking a look at Dungeon Runners.
Dungeon Runners is a game for 1 to 6 players, ages 14 and up. It lasts about 45 minutes to 2 hours, depending on which version of the game you're playing. And it's brought to you by Fire Hazard Entertainment and Red Gear Studios.
Great. Well, let's go see if we can conquer this dungeon. Dungeon Runners is a classic dungeon crawl. You will take on the role of a hero, delving deep into the dungeon of legend. Along the way, you will be fighting creatures that lurk in the dark, taking on side missions and quests, but ultimately, your goal is to find the boss key and defeat the boss. But along the way, you must gather and find better equipment in order to achieve this goal.
Setup is pretty quick and easy. Depending on how long of a game you want to play, short, medium, or long, you'll take 10, 20, or 30 dungeon tiles, shuffle them together along with the boss key tile and the boss monster tile. You'll take the dungeon entrance tile and set it in the middle of the board. This is where all players will begin. You'll take all the decks and shuffle them together, not all together, but individually. So you have encounter cards, quest cards, you have event cards, regular treasure, and epic treasure. So you'll set all these decks out so that you can draw from the appropriate ones at the appropriate time. Each player will take a character card, whoever they want to be, as well as the corresponding health markers. So for the mage, for example, she starts with 6 health. You'll just set those to the side of the board to keep track. Hopefully you'll stay alive.
Yes, indeed.
You'll also get to start with 1 piece of equipment. So you'll take 3 of the treasure cards.
The regular treasure.
The regular treasure cards, not the epic ones. Just 1, your basic stuff. You'll pick 3, keep 1, and the other 2 get shuffled back into the deck.
Great.
After that, all players will roll a d6, and whoever has the highest number will start the game.
Great. And the way you win and lose, winning is defeating the boss, obviously, right?
Of course it is.
But losing, when all the heroes die.
I should say, it's whenever all the heroes have died at the same time. So
Yes.
You can lose in a battle, you can die.
But you can come back after 3 rounds as long as somebody is still alive. But in general, if all the heroes are wiped out, then of course the game is over.
The dungeon wins.
All right, now before we jump into how the game works, let's take a look at how a character sheet is made up. And like any good dungeon crawl, all your characters have stats. You've got your health, you have your movement, defense, and attack. And all your characters also have their own special abilities, as well as just a description, some flavor text telling you a little bit more about your character. All right, let's take also a look at some treasure cards, which is also gear, although not always gear because there's food and ways to revive health. But in general, items that you're going to equip, there's some important things to note. You have your character class, which is at the bottom, and really what that means is that particular character gets the text ability of the card. Anybody can use any of the cards, and you'll just get the pluses that are applied to whatever the armor or attacks or whatever it might be. But
it's extra special,
extra
even better
special
if it matches your class.
If it matches your class.
Yeah.
And then at the bottom corner, right corner, it shows that if it's armor, where it gets equipped, if it's single-handed, two-handed, those are the important things to know what your character can carry.
And you can trade. So that's one thing to note. You can trade equipment. And you can carry around as much as you want.
Yeah,
but you
so
can only have
basically you have a bag of holding, which means you can carry as much gear as you want to carry. But maybe not all of it is going to apply to you, so you're holding it in reserve to give it to some of the other people. And what's nice is that as long as you're adjacent, it's just a nice free action to trade back and forth.
Yep, and you might lose equipment when you're in the dungeon. So if you have one-handed item, you want to have another one-handed item ready to go.
Yep. Now, of course, this game is all about exploration. And
running the dungeon
and getting better gear. So the big thing you're going to be doing is moving around a lot. So you look at the stat in the top right corner of your player card, which is the green circle with the number value and the wings on it. And you're going to move up to your maximum value movement. Now, you're going to be finding new tiles and revealing them. And when these new tiles come out, you have to flip them over the way they did come out to the table. So,
even if you run into a wall.
Even if you run into a wall, which would stop your movement. But if you can continue onto the tile, then you do so. And now there's other special spots on these tiles. There's 2 double swords, and these double sword spots are encounters. And this is where you're going to probably primarily be starting out to get your better gear. You're going to be encountering monsters here that lurk in the dark. You're going to be battling them. And the nice thing about these battles is that you can have other players engage in these battles with you, which helps tremendously because some of these, especially starting out, you start out pretty weak. You only get 1 gear item, and some of these battles can go on a long time. So having others aid you in these battles is really critical. And
and you can also flee sometimes.
Yes.
So it'll say you can flee on an even roll, you can flee on an odd roll,
right.
or occasionally you can't flee at all.
You can't flee at all. And in the bottom corner of the card, the monster card, it'll reveal to you if you can flee or not. So it's always apparent what's going on there. The other thing about these battles is that once you do collectively defeat the creature, you get treasure, and this is where you're getting the gear. And there's an interesting mechanic where you roll dice to see who gets first pick and so forth. But ultimately, you can trade whatever makes sense to trade back and forth. So these battles are crucial because without better gear, you're never going to be able to take on the big boss. All right, now that you've encountered a monster, what do you do next? So you're gonna battle the monster. And how battles work, they're very straightforward. You have tons of dice that you get to throw, potentially, depending on how much gear you have and your character stats. So you're gonna look at your attack value, and that's the number of dice you get to roll for the attack. And the player on your left is going to roll for the monster, and they get to roll the monster's defense value, however many dice that is required for that monster. And it's really just that back and forth dice chucking. And, swords are a success and shields are a block. And if you're attacking, you don't want shields, you want swords, and so forth. So the battle goes back and forth like this until somebody is victorious or you die, basically. Yep. Hopefully you're victorious is the goal. But it's really that straightforward. And the nice thing is, as you get better gear, they're going to add greatly to your attack value and your defense value. Absolutely. And potentially give you special abilities that you may roll a d6, and on an even number, you may have another dice to add to your pool for defense. Things of that nature. So there's lots of possibilities and lots of different types of gear combos.
Yep, and you're using the same dice for both attack and defense.
Yep.
And so each dice has 3 attack symbols and 3 defense symbols, the shields. And so whether you're attacking or you're defending, you're using these same dice, which is a pretty cool feature, I think. Yep. Also, when you're in these battles, on your turn, you get to attack once. Mm-hmm. Typically, you attack first. Yep. And then you get to defend once. And then it goes on to the next player's turn. But these encounters can last over multiple turns.
Yeah, indeed. And that's why we say that it's really kind of crucial, especially early on, that you have other players come and aid you in these battles. That way you can get through these creatures much faster. And after you complete an encounter, then you're going to use one of the completed encounter tokens to put on the spot. And ultimately, the other nice thing is that these spots will open back up. If there's a health token on or health marker on the tile and someone takes advantage of that health and they're going to roll a d6 to get health back, then all the encounters reveal again and are possible to engage with once more.
Yep, which means that you can go looking for more equipment through doing these additional battles.
And really, you really do have to gear up because these end-level boss monsters are pretty difficult to battle against.
All right, let's take a look at quests next.
Yeah.
So with quests, you kind of have 2 different things you can be getting into. Some of them are just things that you need to accomplish, and then you get a reward. So we'll take a look at a couple of those. Discover 2 tiles. That one's real simple. You discover 2 tiles, you earn some treasure.
Yeah.
Barehanded. So beat a monster barehanded. No weapon equipment.
That's a challenge.
It is a challenge, but you get treasure. You get additional treasure in addition to what you get from beating him. A solo battle. So you battle a monster by yourself, gain more treasure. So there's a whole bunch of different things like this in the deck. Yeah. There are also epic monsters,
Yeah.
which
man.
are exactly like they sound. They're pretty epic.
They are.
And so just like normal monsters, you can't have assistance. And of course, these epic monsters give you epic treasure.
Yes.
And so sometimes it'll be a combo. You'll get 1 epic treasure and 4 regular treasure, or something like that. It's all indicated on the card. But
and those epic treasures are really actually epic. I mean, they have some much more powerful weapons.
You'll definitely want to be engaging in these epic battles so that you get the epic treasure so that you can beat the boss monster.
Indeed. Teaming up on those is critical.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to spend too much time round after round trying to defeat these guys because they are tough.
Yeah.
These epic monsters.
And sometimes the epic ones you can't flee. And so you have to have help or you're
hey,
going to die.
Come over here, I need help.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, now after all players have taken their turn, then the dungeon gets a turn. And you're going to draw an event card. So these event cards are very different across the board. So there is the one that you're always hoping to find, which is it's quiet for now, nothing happens. But there are trap cards that might affect you or everyone. You just never know what they're going to do. There's also whole cave-ins for the dungeon. And some of the cards will apply for ongoing effects and some are just immediate effects. So these are things to keep in mind, and the dungeon always has its final say.
One thing to note, though, is that you do not do these event cards when you're in that epic battle with the boss monster at the end.
Event cards stop at that point.
And if there's any ongoing event cards, they
disappear
done.
as well.
Yep. So when you're in the final battle, it's just you and the boss monster. You don't have to worry about the events.
Indeed. And then finally, like we said before, there are hearts on the different tiles. And again, these are healing spots. And if you do use a healing, that's your turn. You don't do anything else. So
you can also heal by treasure cards.
Yes.
So you can find cheese, you can find meat in the dungeon.
There's
in addition
lots
to the
of
healing
ways to bring health back, which is crucial as well. So there's also purple haze or miasma on the board that will slow or impede your efforts for movement. So you have to spend 2 movement points every time you move through these purple clouds.
It's not easy to get around in the dungeon.
No.
All right, let's talk about that final boss fight.
This is it.
So the first thing you have to do is to find the boss key, of course.
Yep.
So there are a few encounters on the way, which will be good. It'll get you extra equipment.
Yep.
But once a player reaches that boss key, they're going to pick it up.
Yep.
And they need to take it to the boss room. Now, if that player dies on the way to the boss room, they drop the key.
Not only being tragic, but they drop the key.
Of course. And so someone's got to go and pick up the key. And then you're going to get to the boss room.
And everyone has to be alive.
Everyone has to be alive.
Yep.
Everyone has to agree you're ready to take on the boss monster.
Yep.
And then you'll use the key, unlock it, and basically randomly draw one of the boss tiles, the boss monsters, and that's who you're going to be battling.
Right, and there's very different levels of bosses here. It's crazy.
And in addition to having their varying stats, they might have a lot more health or defense or attack or whatever.
And
they
their
each
special
have their
abilities
own
are rough.
Special ability. Yeah. For example, the dragon.
Yeah.
Every time that you attack him, you automatically lose 1.
Yep.
No matter what defense you roll, you're going to lose an attack.
It becomes a health race at that point.
Yeah.
So, beating up on him fast with everything you have is key.
Okay, so the combat with the boss monster is going to play out very similar to the encounters that you've been experiencing with a couple little differences. So the boss monster is only going to roll 1 time for his attack, and that's his attack against everyone.
Right.
And then he'll roll 1 time for his defense, and that's his defense against everyone. So typically, if you're assisting people in battles, your monster's going to be attacking and defending everyone individually. With the boss monster, 1 time for everyone, which makes the experience a little bit faster and a little bit better.
Very much so. And again, it's he rolls an attack of 6, and everyone individually has to defend against that 6.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's the same thing where you're going to be using, your base plus all of your equipment, and hopefully you have enough to take them on.
To shield those massive attacks, because they are massive.
Yeah. So the boss monster, you're just going to continue fighting until either all of the heroes have died and they're out at the same time.
Yep.
Now, I will say you can die against the boss monster, and you'll respawn after 3 turns.
So people can just hang in there long enough.
Yeah. But if everyone's died at once, then you've lost.
Right.
Or if you have enough attack collectively that you can take on the boss monster and drain his health, then you've won and you've beat the dungeon.
Indeed. All right, folks, once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen here has been in prototype form. So the rules and artwork and things still might be in flux, so keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes. Now, that said, this is that classic dungeon crawl type game, and really your goal here, bottom line, is you have to gear up before you take on that boss. That's really the number one thing you have to do.
Yep, you're going around, you're fighting all these little monsters before you get to the big boss monster and that big boss fight at the end of the game.
Indeed. All right, folks, so if this looks like a game that might be of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. And I think that's it from us. And until next time, we'll see you at the table.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.